I remember the sound first, screeching tires. A scream, mine. Then, nothing. They said I flew 10 feet in the air before landing on the cold pavement. I was unconscious, broken, bleeding. The doctors said I needed surgery fast, and they called my parents. But when they arrived, they didn't cry. They didn't ask if I'd live, they just said, "She's not our real daughter. We owe her nothing." Then they left. They left me to die. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. But I heard it all. And in that moment, I made a silent promise. Before we dive into this heartbreaking true story, ask yourself, what would you do if the people who raised you left you to die? This isn't just betrayal. It's a twist you'll never forget. Stick around till the end because when they came back for the inheritance, they weren't ready for what they found. Subscribe now and turn on notifications, because stories like this, you won't hear them anywhere else. Growing up in the greenhouse always felt like being an outsider in my own life. It wasn't just the silence at the dinner table or the way my mom looked past me like I wasn't even there. It was the constant, quiet reminder that I didn't belong. I was 5 the first time I asked why Marcus got a new bicycle, and I didn't. I remember Cynthia's cold voice as she said, "Marcus is older. He needs it more." No smile, no warmth, just that icy tone. From then on, I stopped asking questions. Cynthia Green was a woman of sharp suits and sharper words. She ran charity galas and smiled perfectly for pictures, but behind closed doors, she barely acknowledged me. Her praise was like rain in a desert, rare and never enough to grow anything. Donald was worse in a different way. He didn't shout or scold. He ignored. I'd walk into a room and feel like furniture. Then there was Marcus, my older brother in blood only to them, not to me. He had this cruel smirk whenever he looked at me, like I was a bad joke the family couldn't get rid of. He never let me forget how I didn't measure up. "You know you're not even really one of us, right?" He'd whisper when no one was around. "You're the charity case, the accident." I didn't understand what he meant back then. Not fully. I thought maybe he was just being mean. Kids say things. But over time, it started making sense. The birthdays were the clearest sign. Marcus always had cake, guests, music. Mine? One time they gave me a card 2 days late and told me not to expect too much because things were tight financially. I later overheard Cynthia on the phone ordering a new diamond bracelet the same day. Still, I tried to be a good daughter. I kept my room clean, got perfect grades, helped in the kitchen when no one asked. I thought maybe if I was quiet enough, useful enough, they'd see me. But nothing I did was ever good enough. I remember one time in 8th grade I won a regional art competition. I came home holding the certificate like a golden ticket. When I showed Cynthia, she barely looked up from her phone. "That's nice," she said flatly, "but don't expect us to pay for art school. Focus on something practical." I went upstairs and cried, but I never let them see me cry. That became my rule. By 16, I had learned how to disappear. I'd go straight to school, then to the art studio after class. My teacher, Ms. Claire, became the only adult who actually saw me. She said my paintings had heart, that they told stories no one else could. She once offered to talk to my parents about art college scholarships. I begged her not to. I didn't want to give them another reason to laugh at me. Marcus was getting ready for college that year. He had full attention. Celebration dinners, custom luggage, praise from every direction. "Our boy's going places," Donald would beam, clapping him on the back. Me? I was working extra hours at the library and saving what little I could in a shoebox under my bed. My plan was simple: graduate, leave, never come back. I had enough saved for a bus ticket and maybe 1 month's rent in a cheap town. I didn't care where, as long as it wasn't here. But a part of me still hoped, just a little, that one day, someone in that house would look at me and say, "You matter. You belong." That hope was the cruelest part. The day before the accident, I remember sitting by the window, sketching the garden in my notebook. Cynthia walked by and looked over my shoulder. For a moment, I thought she'd say something kind. Instead, she said, "Why do you waste your time with this nonsense? Then she walked away. That was the last full sentence I remember her saying to me before everything changed. The next night, I got on my bike needing to clear my head after being ignored during Marcus's party. I wasn't invited, of course, just told to stay out of sight. I rode toward my studio, the one place I still felt like myself. I didn't see the car, didn't hear it until it was too late. And in that split second before everything went black, I wasn't thinking about pain or fear. I was thinking, maybe now they'll finally see me. It started with a box, a dusty old box wedged deep behind a stack of winter coats in the attic. I wasn't snooping, at least not at first. Cynthia had told me to clean the upstairs storage since Marcus had more important things to do. That was how most chores landed on me. No argument, no choice. The attic was hot and stuffy. Sunlight came through a crack in the ceiling, catching dust like falling glitter. I pulled boxes around, stacked old books, moved a broken lamp, and that's when I found it. A plain, unmarked cardboard box. No labels. Taped shut like someone never meant for it to be opened. I don't know why I opened it. Maybe curiosity. Maybe instinct. But the moment I peeled back the flaps, I felt something shift in the air. Inside were a few baby clothes, a faded hospital tag, and a stack of papers. The clothes weren't mine. I never remembered wearing anything like them. And then I saw the name on the hospital bracelet. Alina Summers. Not Green. Summers. My hands started to shake. I pulled out the papers, birth records, legal documents, and then a letter. It was addressed to Cynthia Green, from an adoption agency. My head spun. I read every line over and over, not fully believing it. I was adopted, since birth. They weren't my real parents. They'd never told me. I wasn't a Green by blood. My heart felt like it was pounding through my ribs. My whole world, already fragile, cracked wide open. I ran downstairs, the letter still in my hand. Cynthia was in the kitchen, stirring her tea like always. So calm, so collected. I stepped into the room, barely breathing. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. She didn't even look up. "Tell you what?" "That I'm not your real daughter," I said, my voice trembling. She finally glanced at the paper in my hand. Her expression changed, only for a second. Then it turned cold again. "So you went digging?" I had a right to know. Cynthia walked past me, took the paper from my hand, folded it neatly, and said, "That was none of your business. You live here, don't you? You eat our food. What more do you want?" I stood there frozen. Her words stung worse than anything I had imagined. "I wanted to know who I am," I whispered. She turned back, eyes sharp. "You're lucky we even took you in. If it weren't for that clause in the trust, we wouldn't have bothered." I blinked. "What clause?" She waved me off. "Nothing you need to worry about. Go clean up the mess you made." That was it. No comfort, no apology, no answers, just orders. That night I cried until my eyes burned, but then something inside me hardened. All this time I'd thought maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe if I tried harder, they'd love me. But the truth was, they never planned to love me. They never wanted me. I was just a name on some paper, a way to unlock something they wanted. That trust clause she mentioned kept echoing in my mind. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew it had nothing to do with love. The next morning, Marcus shoved me in the hallway like usual. I didn't react. He grinned and said, "Heard you found out. Guess the family secret's out, huh?" "You knew?" I asked, stunned. He laughed. "Of course I did. I was there when they signed the papers. I was 4. Mom and Dad said they were getting me a charity project to impress some investors." I couldn't breathe. A charity project. That's what I'd been to them. He leaned in close. "You really thought you were one of us? Please. You're just a reminder that Mom's not as perfect as she pretends to be." I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just walked away. That night, I dug out my shoebox savings and counted every dollar. I wrote a list. Places I could go, people who might help, maybe even Ms. Claire. I wasn't sure when or how, but I knew I couldn't stay here. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and said it out loud for the first time. I don't belong here. And for once, I didn't feel broken saying it. I felt free. I just didn't know that my plan to leave would be cut short by the crash that came only days later. The night of the party wasn't supposed to be special for me. It wasn't my celebration, it never was. Cynthia had been planning Marcus's scholarship party for weeks. She ordered custom banners, crystal glassware, hired a private chef, even brought in a violinist for ambiance. You'd think he won the Nobel Prize, not just got into a state university. But in this house, anything Marcus did was gold. I stayed upstairs while the staff set everything up. I wasn't told to, but I already knew my place. I'd learned long ago that Cynthia didn't like me around when guests were over. "It's better for everyone if you stay out of the way," she'd once said during one of Donald's business dinners. I never forgot that line. So I stayed quiet. From my bedroom window, I watched as guests pulled up in shiny black cars. Laughter floated up from the garden like perfume. I heard clinking glasses, music, people congratulating Marcus, calling him brilliant, charming, going places. I waited for someone to ask, "Where's Alina?" No one did. Around 8 p.m., I crept downstairs in my socks, careful not to make the floor creak. I stood at the hallway corner where the lights didn't reach. From there, I could see into the ballroom. Marcus stood at the center, soaking up all the attention like a sponge. He wore a navy blue suit and a smug grin, holding a glass of apple cider like it was champagne. Donald raised his voice above the chatter and tapped his glass. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, smiling wide, "we are so proud of Marcus. Our boy's going places. Not everyone can say that." A ripple of laughter followed. Cynthia stood beside him, hand on his arm, glowing with pride. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd say something that included me. Even something small. But instead, she added, "When you raise them right, they make you proud. It's all about having the right blood." The right blood. I stepped back into the shadows, heart sinking. That wasn't just about Marcus. That was aimed at me. Every word felt like a nail in my chest. I couldn't stay there any longer. I slipped out the back door into the night, grabbing my coat and my sketch pad as I went. The sky was overcast, the air sharp and damp. I got on my bike, the only thing I owned that was truly mine, and started pedaling. I didn't have a clear destination, but my body moved on its own, toward the studio. Ms. Claire's art studio was a few miles away, closed at that hour, but it always felt like a second home. The place smelled like paint and wood shavings and possibility. I used to dream about sleeping there when things got bad. My mind was spinning as I rode. I thought about the letter I'd found, the words Marcus said, the look in Cynthia's eyes when I asked about the truth. It all swirled together in my head like storm clouds. I wasn't part of that family, not really. I never had been. But maybe I didn't need them. Maybe I could build something on my own. That thought gave me a flicker of hope. Just enough to keep going. I was only 3 blocks from the studio when it happened. Headlights. Blinding. I didn't even hear the car coming. I turned my head just in time to see the silver blur before it hit me. The impact sent me flying. I remember the rush of air, the sharp pain, then cold pavement. Everything after that was a blur of red and black. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I didn't know if I was alive or dying. And as I lay there fading, the last thought in my mind wasn't fear. It wasn't even pain. It was this small, bitter hope that maybe, just maybe, if they thought they were about to lose me, they might care. But I didn't know then just how wrong I was. The world felt like a slow, heavy dream. I floated in darkness somewhere between asleep and awake. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. But I could hear things, voices, machines, whispers. At first, I thought I was dead. Then I heard someone say, "Her vitals are holding, like it's a miracle she survived." That's when I knew I was still alive. Barely. I was in the hospital. A room with humming machines and the faint smell of antiseptic. Tubes ran into my arms. My body ached in ways I couldn't describe. And every now and then I heard footsteps, nurses talking, doors opening and closing, but no family. No one cried over me. No one asked how I was doing. Then came the day my parents were called. I heard the nurse on the phone. "Yes, she's stable, but she's unconscious. We need you to come in. You're listed as next of kin." Hours later, I heard heels click into the room. Cynthia. Then Donald's voice, cold, sharp. "Let's get this over with," he muttered. I couldn't open my eyes, but I listened closely. A nurse, kind but confused, said, "She's lucky to be alive. She'll need care, support. We'll need signatures." Then Cynthia cut her off. Her voice was flat. "She's not our biological daughter. We were guardians. She's not really our responsibility." The nurse paused. "But she's listed under your name." "We owe her nothing," Donald said. "If she doesn't make it, just inform us for paperwork. We won't be involved beyond that." Then their footsteps faded away. They left me. Again. They came to the hospital, stood over my broken body, and chose to walk away. Not even a tear, not a single ounce of love. Just business, just indifference. I couldn't cry. I couldn't scream. But inside, something shattered, and something else started to grow. That was when I made a promise to myself. If I survived this, I would never, ever beg them for anything again. Days passed. I started coming back slowly. I could feel my fingers again. Then my legs. My eyes opened one night when no one was watching. The room was dim, machines still beeping, but I was awake. That's when Nurse Tara found me. She was different from the others, kind, gentle. She sat with me even when I couldn't talk. She adjusted my blankets, brushed my hair, whispered, "You're safe now." The next morning, I whispered back, "Water." She gasped and hugged me lightly, tears in her eyes. "You're awake," she smiled. "Oh, thank God." She stayed by my side after that, brought me soup, helped me sit up. But the thing that made me trust her most, she never asked about my parents. Not until I brought it up. "Did they come back?" I asked one night. My voice was raspy, weak. Tara looked away. "They came once, said they wouldn't be involved. I'm sorry, Alina." I nodded. I wasn't surprised, just sad. But Tara didn't stop there. Something about my case didn't sit right with her. She told me quietly, "I looked at your file. There's something strange." "What do you mean?" I asked. "There's a clause in your hospital paperwork tied to a trust fund. If something happens to you before you turn 18, everything goes to your guardians." I froze. A trust fund? No one ever told me. Tara leaned in. "Did you know about that?" I shook my head. "I think that might be why they don't care," she said gently. "They don't need you. They just need the paperwork if something goes wrong." My stomach twisted. It all made sense now. Why they adopted me. Why they kept me around but never loved me. Why they came to the hospital. Not out of concern, but to see if they could collect. They were waiting for me to die. And I didn't plan on giving them that satisfaction. Tara promised to help me. She said, "You don't owe them anything. We'll figure this out. I know a lawyer, someone who deals with things like this." That was the first time I felt hope. Real, steady hope. I wasn't alone anymore. And I was going to make sure the Greens knew exactly what I'd heard and what I planned to do next. It had been a week since I woke up. A week of slowly learning how to sit up, how to sip water, how to breathe without pain. Nurse Tara never left my side. She kept me grounded, calm. But underneath that calm, I could feel something building, a quiet fire. I hadn't told anyone everything I heard the night my parents came. Not yet. I wasn't ready. Tara had already connected me with a lawyer. His name was Mr. Collins. He wore glasses, carried a leather folder, and looked at me like I was more than a case file. I told him what I knew. The adoption, the trust clause, what they said when they thought I couldn't hear. He nodded slowly. "I'll need to dig deeper," he said. "But it sounds like there's more going on than just neglect." Tara helped me sign a few forms. Things to protect my rights. Things to transfer certain powers if I couldn't speak for myself again. By the 6th day, I was strong enough to walk short distances. They still kept me in a private room, mostly to avoid attention. Tara said it was for safety. I wasn't sure what that meant until the 7th day came. That morning, everything felt off. Nurses whispered outside my door. One nurse poked her head in, then disappeared before saying anything. Tara came in a few minutes later with a strange look on her face. "They're here," she said. I didn't need her to say who. Cynthia and Donald Green. I felt my chest tighten. Not with fear, but with something sharper. A calm sort of anger. Tara leaned in. "Do you want to see them?" "No," I said softly. "But let them think I'm still unconscious." Her eyes flicked with understanding. She nodded and whispered something to the staff outside. I climbed back into the bed and closed my eyes. The machines beeped. The air went still. Then I heard it. The heels. The cold voice. "She's still out?" Cynthia asked. A nurse responded softly, "Yes, no signs of waking yet." I could hear them walking around me. I imagined their faces, their fake concern. "Tragic," Donald said. "Such a shame." Cynthia sighed. "I guess we'll need to speak with someone about her belongings. And the trust. Might as well get ahead of it." "Already called the lawyer," Donald said. "He said he'd meet us this afternoon." They didn't say my name, not once. They didn't ask how I was doing. They didn't even touch my hand. And then they left. When the door closed, I opened my eyes. Tara stood there, arms crossed, eyes burning. "They didn't even flinch," she muttered. "Good," I said. "Let them believe whatever they want." That afternoon, Mr. Collins arrived. He had a folder in his hand and a look on his face that said something big was coming. "They reached out," he said. "Your parents." "They're not my parents," I corrected him. He nodded slowly. "They wanted to meet to discuss your estate." I raised an eyebrow. "They think I'm dead?" He smirked. "They think you're close enough. I told them we'd meet in your room." I froze. "Now?" He nodded. "You up for it?" I looked at Tara. She gave me a small smile. "I'm ready." A few minutes later, the door opened. Cynthia walked in first, all pearls and perfume. Donald followed, less put together than usual, but still full of that same fake charm. Then they saw the bed. Empty, no machines, no tubes, just a neatly folded blanket. And a letter. Cynthia walked over slowly, picked it up. Her hands trembled just slightly. She opened it. As she read, her face changed. Her eyes darted across the page, then stopped. Donald leaned over her shoulder. His jaw dropped. "What is this?" he barked. "She heard us," Cynthia whispered. Their faces went pale. "She was awake," Donald said, stepping back. "She heard everything." Cynthia turned the letter over like she thought there was some mistake. But there wasn't. I had written every word myself, and this was only the beginning. I had written the letter 3 nights after waking up, while the hospital was quiet and the machines hummed like background music. It wasn't long or dramatic. It was just the truth, sharp, cold, and impossible to deny. They needed to read it. And now they had. The letter started simply, "If you're reading this, it means you came to collect something. Not to check on me, not to ask if I lived, but to make sure I was gone. Unfortunately for you, I'm not. I heard everything. I heard you say I wasn't your daughter. I heard you say you owed me nothing. I heard you leave the room and never come back." I had imagined their faces while writing it. Cynthia's controlled calm cracking. Donald's fake business voice twisting in panic. I used to think I was the problem. I used to believe if I worked harder, stayed quieter, made you proud, you might love me. But I know now, I was never meant to be loved by you. I was just a name in a legal file, a clause in a trust, a means to an end. That part was the hardest to write, not because I was sad anymore, but because I was angry. You adopted me to make yourselves look good. You used me for your image. And when I stopped being useful, you threw me away. You walked out of the hospital and left me to die. That was your choice. I remembered Nurse Tara watching me while I wrote. She didn't say a word, just stood quietly, letting me bleed it all onto the page. I've already taken legal steps. My guardianship has been transferred. I've moved everything under new management. You'll find you have no access to anything. No accounts, no insurance, no control. And one more thing. Attached to this letter is an audio file, a recording from your visit. The part where you say, "We owe her nothing." I made sure it's stored safely, with people who will act if anything happens to me. Tara had helped me hide a small voice recorder in the room, just in case. She said, "Sometimes people like them only understand consequences." She was right. So, go ahead and try to claim anything. You'll only expose yourselves. My lawyer already knows everything. The hospital staff does too. There's a paper trail now, and you'll never touch a cent. If you feel your face is turning white right now, good. That means the mask is finally cracking. I ended it simply. You didn't just lose access to a trust. You lost the last chance to be decent human beings. You lost the girl who once begged to be seen. I'm not her anymore. As I imagined them standing there, holding the letter with pale faces and shaking hands, a strange calm washed over me. I had spent years trying to get their approval. Now I didn't even need their apology. I wanted their silence. Tara came in minutes after they left the hospital. She had peeked from down the hall to watch them leave. "They looked like ghosts," she said, like they'd seen something they couldn't explain. I smiled weakly. Good. Mr. Collins confirmed everything was locked in. I was now legally under Tara's temporary care until I turned 18. He also said he'd taken extra steps to protect the audio recording and the letter. "You gave them just enough to remind them what they did," he said, nodding with quiet respect. "It'll haunt them longer than anything the court could do." I didn't need a courtroom. I didn't need a crowd. I just needed them to know the truth. And now they did. The best part? They couldn't deny it. No matter how hard they tried to spin the story, no matter what lies they told in country clubs or charity events, one thing was undeniable. They left me to die. And I came back stronger than they ever expected. I wasn't done yet. But now, I was in control. 6 months later, my name was on a banner. Not in my family's mansion, not in the hospital, but at the entrance of a small art gallery downtown, glowing under soft lights that made everything look golden. Alina Green, the girl who painted through the silence. I stood at the entrance, nervous, fingers clutching the edge of my coat. The gallery was filled with people, strangers, reporters, artists, and old classmates who barely remembered me. Some were there for the art. Others were there for the story. Everyone had read the article. Abandoned teen wakes from coma, outs parents in brutal letter. It went viral. The journalist had found the letter after Nurse Tara tipped her off anonymously. I didn't even know about it until I woke up to hundreds of messages, interview requests, and offers. Everyone wanted to know more. I didn't tell them everything, just the parts I was ready to share. Tara stood beside me now, smiling proudly, like she'd been waiting her whole life to see me in the light. "You ready?" she whispered. I nodded. "As I'll ever be." The first painting in the gallery was the one I finished in rehab. It was a dark canvas with a single glowing light at the center. A small girl standing alone in a hallway, holding a paper crown. The description beside it read, "She never stopped hoping, even when they stopped looking." I heard someone sniffle behind me. A woman wiped her eyes, staring at the piece like it had unlocked something inside her. I moved on. Each painting told a part of my story. Loneliness, rejection, silence, but also strength, growth, healing. By the time they reached the final piece, it was a bright field of sunflowers. No people, just open sky and bold color. The caption read, "Freedom isn't a place, it's knowing you can walk away." At the back of the gallery, a small group had gathered around a man in a suit. He looked uncomfortable. Donald Green. And beside him, standing awkwardly, hair pinned tightly, lips thin with pride, Cynthia. I hadn't seen them since they read my letter, but I knew they'd come tonight. They couldn't help themselves. The spotlight they used to crave now burned against their skin. Only this time, it wasn't theirs. They didn't dare approach me. Not at first. They just watched, eyes scanning the walls, reading every painful word on every plaque, watching strangers nod, watching them believe me. They had come for damage control, but there was no script they could follow now. Mr. Collins arrived right on time. He nodded politely at them, then made his way to me. "They're trying to request a meeting," he said quietly. "I assume your answer is still no?" I didn't even blink. "Absolutely," he smirked. "Then you'll love this." He handed me an envelope. Inside was the final confirmation, the court ruling. The trust was no longer in their control. Not only that, but they were now under investigation for willful neglect and financial manipulation related to my adoption. "They're going to lose more than money," he said. "They're losing their reputation. Their story no longer belongs to them." I walked past them once during the event. Just once. Not a word exchanged. Cynthia opened her mouth like she might say something, but I didn't stop. I didn't even look at her. It was the most powerful silence of my life. When the night ended, the reporters swarmed. One of them asked, "Alina, do you have any final words for your parents?" I smiled softly. Not angry, not bitter, just calm. "They taught me something important," I said. "That blood means nothing without love. And sometimes family is who shows up when no one else will." Tara took my hand, and we walked out together. As I passed the final banner, I couldn't help but glance back. Donald and Cynthia stood near the exit, small and quiet in the middle of a room full of people who no longer believed their version of the story. They hadn't just lost a daughter, they lost their mask. And I had finally found my voice.